Hey guys, it's Destiny, and today we're going to be going over the new 5-star selector that was revealed during the 2.7 livestream, and which character you should pick from the selector. Before we begin today's video, let me know which character from 2.7 or even the 3.0 and beyond lineup you are the most excited for. Lastly, if you enjoy videos like these, do make sure to subscribe, hit the like button to support the video, and now let's get straight into it. To start off today's video, let's go over Clara. Clara is a physical destruction character who focuses on a counter playstyle where she wants to get attacked as much as possible to unleash frequent counterattacks onto enemies. Clara also has ways to reduce the damage she receives from enemies through her talent as well as her ultimate. Additionally, Clara will also have ways of increasing her likelihood of being attacked through her technique as well as her ultimate, and Clara's skill will attack enemies as well as deal more damage to those enemies if they are marked with a mark of counter, which enemies are inflicted with a mark of counter whenever she is attacked by them through her talent. When it comes to Clara's ultimate, as mentioned, she'll reduce the damage she takes, increases the likelihood of being hit, as well as now have enhanced counterattacks, which will deal more damage onto enemies. As for her additional traces, she'll have increased counter damage, she'll be able to have better chances to resist crowd control debuffs, and lastly, she also has a 35% fixed chance to dispel a debuff inflicted onto her. Overall, Clara is a nice character for the current endgame modes in Honkai Star Rail, especially for newer players who may not have too many DPS options. She isn't as powerful as some of our top damage dealers, such as Fei Xiao, Acheron, and so on, and they did also release Yun Li in version 2.5, who also takes advantage of the counter playstyle, and if you already have her, then your need for Clara would be lower, but either way, she still is a decent option, of course, for newer players. Now, for those that already have Clara and are curious about her Eidolons, when it comes to her Eidolons, her E1 will make her skill not remove the mark of counter on an enemy, which is beneficial to deal more damage with her skill consistently, as having the mark of counter on an enemy allows her to deal additional damage to them with her skill. As for her E2, she'll get a 30% attack buff after using her ultimate, which is nice for additional damage output. As for E4, she'll have further damage reduction from enemy attacks, and lastly for E6, this is pretty nice as now Clara has a 50% fixed chance to trigger a counterattack whenever allies are attacked. And now her ultimate will have 3 enhanced counterattacks instead of just 2. Her E6 is great for more damage output as well as a chance to deal damage onto enemies whenever an ally is attacked instead. When it comes to Clara's teams, you can use her as a hypercarry DPS or alongside a secondary DPS. For example, Topaz and Numbi would be a good option, as Topaz will inflict proof of debt onto an enemy, which can further Clara's damage output. Some supports you can use with Clara would be Jing Yuan for more ultimate usage as well as attack and damage buffs, Robin for the massive buffs she provides the team, Pela to reduce enemy defenses, and much more. Overall, Clara can be a decent option to consider if you are lacking numerous DPS options, especially as a newer player, and also don't have too much physical coverage on your account. Next up, we have Himeko. Himeko is a Fire Erudition character who has gotten stronger over time due to new synergies with follow-up characters, as well as super break-oriented characters as well. Himeko is a follow-up damage dealer who focuses on dealing frequent follow-up attacks onto enemies through her charge mechanic, which allows her pizza cutter to literally slice up enemies. Whenever an enemy becomes broken, she will gain 1 charge, and if the enemy is an elite enemy or higher, she'll actually gain 3 charges. Himeko needs a total of 3 charges to unleash a follow-up attack onto enemies, so timing when to break enemies and allow her to unleash frequent follow-up attacks. One thing to note though, is that unfortunately Himeko cannot overstack her charges as the cap is 3, so that is something to keep in mind to avoid potentially losing out on a follow-up attack or 2. And then when it comes to Himeko's ultimate, she will deal damage to all enemies and she'll actually gain 5 extra energy for each enemy defeated. Her skill will hit an enemy in adjacents, and when it comes to Himeko's traces, she'll have a 50% fixed chance to burn enemies after attacking them. Her skill damage will increase when attacking enemies who are burned, and if her HP is 80% or higher, she'll also have a 15% crit rate increase. As of lately, Himeko has been performing very well in endgame modes as she could be used on numerous team archetypes. You can use her on a break-centric team for a super break Himeko team, or pair her with other follow-up attackers for a follow-up centric team. One thing to note is that she'll potentially have a very nice synergy with Fugue when it comes to a super break Himeko team. Fugue's skill will allow an ally to ignore enemy weaknesses and reduce their toughness meters. And this is great for Himeko to ensure that she breaks enemies more frequently, and Fugue being on the field will enable Super Break as well as Exo-Toughness onto enemies. And Exo-Toughness will actually allow Himeko to get more charges due to enemies being able to be broken twice now. So this means Himeko will now deal more frequent follow-up attacks onto enemies due to her being able now to get more charges. I'll be sure to showcase Himeko alongside Fugue near Fugue's banner, so if you are interested in that, do consider subscribing. As for Himeko's Eidolons, her E1 will allow her to have a 30% speed increase for 2 turns after unleashing her follow-up attack. And this Eidolon is great for allowing Himeko to have more speed within battle and attack more frequently. E2 will allow her to deal 15% more damage to enemies below 50% health. E4 allows Himeko to get an extra charge whenever she breaks an enemy with her skill. And lastly, E6 will amp up her ultimate damage, as her ultimate will now deal damage 2 extra times equal to 40% of the original damage to a random enemy. I would say Himeko is honestly perfectly fine at E0, but if you do want Eidolons, they could provide decent additional benefits. Overall, Himeko is a great option to consider picking up for your selector, as she is one of the best standard DPS characters, and has been getting better over time due to new synergies. Next up, we have Gepard. Gepard focuses on providing shields for allies, freezing enemies, and also has a self-revive in his kit. Gepard is a decent sustain option for newer players and an option you can run on Acheron teams, especially with the trend market light cone. I would say Gepard's primary flaw is that he only provides shields with his ultimate, and the shields are based on his allies' turn. So if you run out of Gepard shields and don't have your ultimate ready to replenish them, it could be a pretty tough situation. It is worth mentioning though that he does have a low energy cost for his ultimate, could allow you to potentially have a very good uptime on the shields. It just ultimately comes down to how it goes in battle. When it comes to his Eidolons though, his E1 and E2 will focus on his freezes with his skill, as E1 will increase the base chance he freezes enemies, while E2 will reduce an enemy's speed once they are unfrozen. E4 will increase all allies' effect resistance, and E6 will allow Gepard to restore HP as well as immediately take action after reviving himself. I would say if you are a newer player, Gepard will definitely help with clearing content, but for older players, especially for those who have Gallagher built, or you do have the premium sustains, I would likely pass on picking up Gepard unless you really like his character. Next up, we have Bailu. Bailu is a lightning abundance character who focuses on healing allies, reducing the damage they receive, and she also has a revive in her kit in case of bad scenarios happening. When it comes to Bailu's value, I would say she's decent for newer players who don't have many sustain options, but for those that have a built-up Gallagher premium sustains similar to Gepard, I would say to pass up on picking up Bailu, as she unfortunately does not have a cleanse within her kit. And with numerous enemies being able to inflict some form of a debuff onto the team, not being able to cleanse the team can be a huge detriment. While she does have a revive in her kit in case of an ally on your team going down, she can only do this once per battle unless you have E6, so if multiple of your team members become heavily affected by debuffs, it could result in a pretty bad situation. Bailu does have nice healing, but I would say one flaw is how her skill heals allies randomly after the initial heal, rather than healing the entire team like how her ultimate does. I would say similar to Gepard, if you are a newer player, Bailu will definitely help with clearing content, but for older players that already have built up sustains, I would likely pass on picking up Bailu, unless you of course like her character as well. Next up we have Yanqing. Yanqing is a ice hunt character who focuses on amplifying his crit rate and crit damage, as well as having a chance to freeze an enemy and a fixed chance to deal a follow-up within his kit. So unfortunately, when it comes to our DPS options, I would honestly recommend Yanqing the least, as he will lose his Soul Seal Sync effect whenever he receives damage, which means you'll need to use a powerful shielder alongside him, and the RNG on his follow-up is also a bit unfortunate, since now we have just so many follow-up centric characters that have a guaranteed follow-up in their kit. Overall, Yanqing has felt a bit lackluster in comparison to our other DPS options, and I would say to only honestly pick him from the selector if you do like him as a character, just from the story, whatever it may be. And now we actually have Welt. Welt is an imaginary Nihility character who focuses on reducing enemies' speed, as well as delaying their actions. Welt is an interesting case as he is a bit harder to build due to all the stats he would appreciate having. He can be an interesting option though to use for a sustainless team as he can delay and slow down enemies, which allows you to delay when enemies will attack you, and as a result he can work as a pseudo sustain on some teams, and depending on how he is built he can also be a sub DPS on a team as well. When it comes to Welt's Eidolons, they'll assist with increasing his damage output at E1, getting more energy with E2 for more ultimate usage, increasing his base chance to reduce enemy speed at E4, which now can lower the effect's hit rate requirements and allow you to build more into crit, and lastly his skill will now deal damage one extra time to a random enemy with E6. His Eidolons are nice for furthering his damage potential as well as assisting with his build wands. I would say to consider picking up Welt if you like his character or are interested in his playstyle. Now last but definitely not least, we have Bronya. Bronya is a Harmony Wind character who focuses on advancing forward an ally by 100%, dispelling a debuff from an ally, increasing their damage dealt to enemies, attack, crit damage, and so on. Bronya is still a very viable option for teams as she provides nice supportive utility and can synergize nicely with multiple DPS options. When it comes to Bronya's utility, her skill will advance forward an ally by 100%, dispel a debuff from them which can be useful in the case of being inflicted with detrimental debuffs, and also increasing that ally's damage dealt by 66% at trace level 10. This is a great way for Bronya to enable your damage dealer on your team to attack more frequently as well as provide them a huge damage increase buff. As for Bronya's ultimate, she'll increase the team's attack as well as crit damage based on her own crit damage. Bronya can give pretty big crit damage buffs for your damage dealers, especially if she has the Ordeal set equipped, as now she'll give even more crit damage to your damage dealer. When it comes to Bronya's Eidolons, her E1 is very beneficial as she'll have a 50% fixed chance to recover one skill point after using her skill. This can help with skill point usage of the team. Her E2 will increase the speed of an ally by 30% after using her skill on them. This is beneficial for allowing your damage dealer to attack more frequently with the speed increase. E4 is an interesting Eidolon as she'll be able to unleash a follow-up attack now whenever an ally uses a basic attack onto an enemy with wind weakness, and this can be triggered once per turn. I actually showcased this on my channel recently as this Eidolon has a pretty fun synergy with Fei Xiao, as you can now get Flying Aureus stacks from Bronya unleashing the follow-up attack onto an enemy. Plus Bronya can of course advance forward Fei Xiao, which will increase her attacking frequency and on top of that give her pretty nice buffs. Lastly, for Bronya's E6, her skill's buff duration will now last an additional turn. This is great in the scenario if you have to basic attack with Bronya at any point. The buff duration should still be on your damage dealer for an additional turn. This is also beneficial for characters that advance themselves forward and may lose Bronya's buff quickly due to that duration normally being 1 turn if you do not have her E6. And the duration can now also last for a character's follow-up to potentially take advantage of. Overall, Bronya has great value for those who are looking for a strong Harmony option that could be used on numerous teams, and her Eidolons are also worth considering. Now that we've gone over every option, I personally would recommend Himeko or Bronya the most due to how they get a lot of usage to this day, have gotten more and more teams they can synergize with, as well as being great options for endgame modes. When it comes to their Eidolons, I would recommend looking at Bronya's the most as it'll increase her supportive utility and potentially considering Himeko's afterwards. Ultimately though, picking which character you want the most is the best way to use your selector, but I thought I'd give my thoughts on who I personally recommend. I'd love to know who you all plan to use your selector for and who you recommend using the selector on. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, do make sure to subscribe, leave a like to support the video, and I hope to see you all next time. Peace.